Good afternoon. Today is December the 8th, and my name is Candace Sims, and I am with Crime Victims Advocacy Council. I co lead a support group on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights for all of our co homicide victims, for our assault victims, for domestic violence, and anyone who calls our crisis line looking for a meeting of support. I have with me today my friend, Shannon Pruitt. And what we're going to be talking about today is why group support. What I want to start off saying about that is, and Shannon's going to share a little bit about his story as well. For those of you who don't know me, I am a single parent who lost her only child to a murder 13 years ago in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And one of the first suggestions a friend suggested for me was to try a support group. And I did that. And I will be the first one to tell you that I hated it. I didn't want to go back. I vowed not to go back. And it was probably about maybe a month or two after I lost Marcus. But the woman who suggested for me to go, and I'm going to call her name out, Betsy Gooch, I love her so much. She had lost a son prior, about 9 months prior to me losing my son. And I respected and honored her so much that I went just so that I can tell her that I went to the support group. What I didn't realize later on was that the reason why I didn't like group support was because I wasn't ready to face my reality, that this was going to be my life, that my life was different. It was altered, it was changed. And it changed me from being a normal, happy go lucky, um, nothing can make me mad or shake my ground kind of person to a woman who cried all the time and couldn't keep it together and couldn't look at her son's pictures on the wall anymore. And I had to face this devastating reality. And furthermore, I had to face it with people who related with me, who week in and week out came to the support group and poured out their heart in mourning and in sorrow, and not seeming, and not everyone, but some of them not seeming to find their way back to being the person that they once was. And I didn't know that it's a process of me learning how to deal with my grief and not allowing grief to deal with me. So thank God, 13 years later, and now not just being a member of group support, but assisting by facilitating group support. I'm also finding individuals like Shannon who has found a way to cope and to live with the grief of losing a loved one. And so before we get into the meat of this meeting, I'm going to allow Shannon to introduce himself to our audience. Shannon, you have the floor.
Sure. Thank you, Candace. My name is Shannon Pruitt, and I live here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I moved here in 2000, February 2011. It was about 6 months after my partner Chad was murdered in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Um, and at that time, during, I tell this story, and I know that those that of you that are watching out there that have lost a loved one to murder can really understand what I'm talking about. The first year I was numb. I was going through the emotions. And so they always say during that first year, don't make any big decisions. I made a big decision 6 months into it because I just didn't know what to do. And I said, I'm going to Atlanta. Had been here maybe 2 times before, and but it was the place that I needed to be. And so I listened to that inner voice within for me of saying that this is, where I needed to start my healing process,
Mhm, mhm,
which is again, it's an ongoing, never-ending um, challenge that we have when we
Yeah.
lose a loved one.
Mhm.
But I have found that a little bit about me, what I do, I work at a spiritual center. And the other thing that I do is I help people that have lost loved ones to murder.
Mhm.
And I work with another organization, and I'm an outreach person for them. And then I've also been involved in a lot of the CVAC meetings, which has helped me with my growth personally. And I think that, Candace, you're right. At the beginning, when we go to those support groups, that, a lot of us don't want to be there because we never thought that we would, it's not a group that you really want to be a part of, but you need
Right.
to be a part of.
Right.
And one thing that I want to point out is that I first started going to a support group, and it was a grief support group. I would encourage people to, if you're looking for a support group, find a specific support group.
Mhm.
So for Candace and I lost my partner. Candace lost her son a few years prior. It's important to find a homicide support group, because I think that's where you're going to find, wherever you are in your journey, there's going to be people that are newer in that journey. Some people are further on in that journey.
Mhm.
And you find a way of being able to help others
Yes.
as others are helping you. And
Yes.
that's to me, that's the strength of the
Yes.
growth there. And with that, you're able to find that new normal. Things never really
Yes.
go back to how it was,
Mhm.
but you find a new normal, and
Yes.
you're able to, for some of us, find a new meaning of why we are here, why we
Right.
are placed here on this earth.
Right.
So
Right.
that's a little bit about me with a little bit of a recap of of support groups as well.
Yeah. Shannon, I'm so glad that you brought up the idea of find a group support that's grief specific, because that support group that I initially became a member of is the Compassionate Friends. And the Compassionate Friends is a nationwide organization for parents who have lost their children, not just to homicide, but to illness, to suicide, um, to any type of death. And I think that was one of the reasons. It wasn't the primary reason that it made me uncomfortable. Once I understood that this was going to be my life and I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life, then I learned that listening to someone who lost their child to suicide, something that I could totally not relate to, had a different kind of energy in that room, because that type of parent wonders, what did I do, or why didn't I see the signs? And the child sometimes was maybe a teenager or maybe an adult over 35. And before I started this recording, we were talking a little bit about energy and the role that energy plays into a support group, in a support group environment. Um,
Yeah.
Energy can bring you down or energy can lift you up. A form of support for a grieving parent is sometimes that one-on-one, when you're talking to a therapist one-on-one and pouring out your heart to a therapist and looking for an out, or looking for something that will just, you know, um, make you walk out of the room with a bounce. And if that therapist isn't able to do that, then sometimes you can walk out of that room just as sad as you were before you walked through those doors.
Yeah.
And so, one of the advantages to joining a support group, which is why we're doing this little short video today, is to talk about the energy that others bring to help pull you up whenever you're feeling a little down. And we find that that we do encounter that and experience that in support groups. Let's talk a little bit about energy and what the energy brings to a support group.
Yeah, I love that, Candace, because the thing is, a lot of times people are like, well, I can deal with this myself, or I've got family members, I've got friends that I can talk to. And I think it's important to point out that because we are all individual, we grieve differently. And
Yes.
so the commonality in that support group and amongst those that you love, you have lost that same individual to this horrific crime, you
Hmm.
know um, but because of the individuality of us, we grieve differently. So a husband may grieve different than the wife or than that of the child, But and it doesn't discredit anyone's grief. But when you go into a support group, this is the first time that you've met that other person, and
Right.
you connect from that loss, from
Yeah.
knowing okay, they've lost this person, but
Yeah.
you're able to be a lot of times more open
Hmm.
about how you're feeling.
Hmm.
Because one thing that our loved ones do, they're so connected to us. They
Hmm.
want us just to, you'll hear crazy things like, well, you just got to move on. You just,
Hmm.
you should be at this point right now. You
Mm.
should be wherever you need to be at that moment.
Oh gosh,
And
say that
wherever that
again.
is, that's
Yes.
okay. And
Yes.
that's what you find in that support group, because I may come in one day and I'm like, man, Candace, I'm really having a hard time. And she'll start sharing about Marcus, and it'll be a memory that, that starts making her laugh. And then all of a sudden we might be laughing about something that, a memory that she had that brings joy,
Yeah.
because those loved ones are still with us as
Yes.
long as we allow their memory to live on with us. So that energy might be the energy that I need to be like, you know what? I
Hmm.
remember this about Chad.
Hmm.
And I have, so yes, I had that loss,
Hmm.
but I don't want to discredit all of that joy and all of those memories that I had
Yeah.
from that one instant that
Right.
he was taken.
Right.
And so I think that when you go to a support group and you open up that family, if you will,
Hmm.
um, you're received in a different way to
Right.
where you can work on that healing process.
Yes, yes. I love that. I love that. And and another thing that I want to add too before we close is, whenever we come to a support group, again, like what Shannon is talking about, we don't just bring ourselves, we bring our loved ones with us because they are with us in spirit. And so, because Shannon will never get to know Marcus, I will never get to know Chad, but I may say something about Marcus that may trigger a memory of Chad. And I
Yes.
want to know Chad the way Shannon knows Chad. I want to know the things that Shannon loved about Chad so that I can feel this love that he had for Chad. And it's a camaraderie, it's a bond, it's that spiritual connection that you get from being in a support group, because someone is going to uplift you, someone is going to encourage you, and someone is going to let you know that, yeah, they're going to validate your pain and they're going to validate your hurt and they're going to tell you it's okay. But they're also going to tell you that your loved one would not want you to live the rest of your life in this type of pain. And it won't last always. It's a process. We have to go through the stages of grief, and they don't come in order.
No.
And they don't linger forever. But you finally get to a point of acceptance and you finally get to a point of purpose. And I believe that you can best get or best arrive to that point of purpose by being in a support group of your peers.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I always say you have to feel before you can heal.
Oh boy, I love that.
And that's
Mhm.
the reality. So wherever you're at the moment, we're into a holiday season,
Yeah.
and that proves to be a challenging time.
Hmm.
And so we may have times during that season that we'll laugh, we'll
Hmm.
cry, we might be angry. We may have all those emotions in one day, and none of those emotions are wrong,
Right.
because we're feeling each and every one of them.
Hmm.
When you love someone that hard and that strong, of course they will always be a part of you,
Yes.
but
Absolutely.
when the more, what I found is the more you tell your story,
Mm.
that's when they start to feel more a part of you,
Yes.
and the healing continues. And
Yeah.
so the pain doesn't go away, it softens.
It
It
softens.
softens over the years.
I like that. I
And
like
that's
that.
kind of how we get through it. And we get through it together, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm. Well, today I am thanking Chad for allowing me to meet you and to connect with you and to bond with you as a supporter on this journey. Thank you so much for just offering your time to do this web with me, to share with others the benefits and the advantages in trying a group support. And I hope that, with the things that we shared together, will encourage those who may have thought about it, but have never tried it, to try a group support in and around their area, or if not, to connect with either one of us and join a support group. So
Wonderful.
thank you so much, Chad.
Yes. And thank you, Marcus.
All right, all right.